And welcome to Penalty Box Radio Live, presented by Salas Realty Group. Salas Realty Group, your premier destination for Nashville, Tennessee real estate. Also brought to you by the Nashville Spartans, Nashville's one and only junior hockey team based in Nolensville. I am your host, Alex Doherty of Penalty Box Radio. And joining me today is not Sean Smith. It is actually a guest host for tonight. For the first time in Penalty Box Radio Live of the new season, we have a guest host, and her name is Ann Kimmel of the Hockey News. Welcome, Ann.
Thank you so much, Alex. Thrilled to be here, of course.
Yes, and Ann has been covering the Predators for a while now for the Hockey News. Does a fantastic job. Writes probably more than anyone else, really. I mean, writes a ton of stuff about the Predators. And we're glad to have you. Today on the show, we will recap a wild week for the Preds where they lost to a couple of former head coaches, which was pretty funny. But they also picked up a huge road win in Buffalo last night. We also learned of a trade request on the team. We'll talk about what that means. It's kind of an odd timing for that. Some strange timeline of all that. We're going to get into that. But we're also going to talk a little bit about a guy that I think has had a really good year so far, Michael McCarron. Preview or talk about what he's been up to this year, and also something that happened last year, which is kind of interesting. Conversation with him. And then we're going to preview the next week. And, of course, Ann, you are going to have to participate in the 3-on-3 draft. Are you okay with that?
I am so ready for this.
Okay.
I'm so ready.
Okay. It's a good one. It's a good topic there. But we always start with the puck drop topic of the day. It's just a quick thing to get us going. And my question is to you, does all of Nashville owe John Hynes an apology for watching the Minnesota Wild come in and beat down the Preds 6-1? Do we owe John Hynes an apology?
Even if we did owe John Hynes an apology, would the Nashville Predators fan base actually give the apology? I think that is the actual question that you're going to want to ask. But I would say no, because let's be real, how much of that loss really was directly tied to the coaching of John Hynes? I think that win, the way Minnesota came out and played, I think that was very circumstantial, not taking anything away from John Hynes.
Sure.
But I think that was more circumstantial. I'm not sure that was his coaching wizardry at work quite yet in Minnesota.
Well, my answer is yes. Everyone owes John Hynes an apology because I always thought John Hynes got a raw deal here. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think he's a good coach. I don't know that he's a great coach. I don't think he's his ceiling to me is probably not where you'd want it to be. But I think he was for where the team was post Laviolette, where they were when he took over. I think he did a lot of good things, and people only want to talk about, Ellie Tolvanen.
Oh my goodness!
So,
yeah.
So I do think John Hynes is a good coach, good man, good coach,
yes.
And I'm happy he got a job up there with the Minnesota Wild. But we are not a Minnesota Wild podcast. We are or radio show. We are a Nashville Predators podcast and radio show. So we're going to talk about that. I don't want to talk much about the Minnesota Wild game. They lost 6-1. It ended a 6-game winning streak. A lot of things went wrong on that one. There was a very, very questionable hit on Alex Carrier that knocked him out for a while from Kirill Kaprizov. Department of Player Safety, crickets. Nothing from them. So that's tough scene. Then after that, 2 days later, they lose to the New York Rangers. Tell me what you think. I thought that it was even though it was a loss, it was a much better game than it was against Minnesota. Is that what you thought?
I think for as dramatically poor as the performance was against Minnesota, I was as equally surprised by how well the Predators were able to bounce back and come out against, arguably the best team in the league right now. So yeah. I was very impressed with this. I thought this was maybe one of Nashville's most complete, consistent games that we've seen from them this season. I thought it was fantastic hockey.
Yeah, it was a great game. I mean, Ryan O'Reilly, I thought, had a huge performance in that one. I think that there's something about the way he plays the game that you can just always kind of count on him. I mean, Forsberg has been their best offensive player, but Ryan O'Reilly's just always there. He's always in places you need him. He's always producing at both ends. He's just an all-encompassing player for them right now, and he was a big part of that one. It didn't end up in a win, but hey, he had the goal early. He had an assist. The second period in particular was wild because you had a shorthanded goal by Colton Sissons to put them up 3-1 just after the Rangers had scored. And then they get a couple of, the Rangers were just really, really good, but they get a couple of these goals that are like deflections and tips that are just, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
It was wild. So Chris Kreider, Vincent Trocheck, that gave them that tied it, and then Ryan Lindgren gets the goal to put them ahead. And they almost made it happen, but you have to like the way that they responded after the Wild game. They didn't like their performance. They played well against like you said, the best team in the league. And then they go to Buffalo, and we're going to talk a little bit about this Buffalo Sabres game because it was a really tough game, and they came out on top. But I think the takeaway is UC Saros.
Oh, yeah. This was vintage UC Saros. We've talked, you and I have talked, different outlets are talking about, we haven't really seen necessarily UC Saros hit his stride yet. I always say that UC Saros is more of a crock pot than a microwave. He's going to take a little time to warm up, but when he gets warmed up, he's really going to be cooking something. And I think it's taken a little bit of time this season to kind of get him there. But what you saw in Buffalo, you say, okay, that's UC Saros.
Yeah.
That's the guy we know.
And he had the crazy save late in the third period that where it was just scramble in front, and he was going right, and then he moved left and made the pad save. That was a great save. But it was his second most saves of the season, 34 saves. It wasn't a shutout, but the only goal he allowed was a penalty shot goal.
Yeah. Okay, can I ask you penalty shots? Yeah. Is it me? Or doesn't it feel like penalty shots are the new slash? Remember a couple seasons ago where it was like they were like, we're on top of slashes and they were called all the time. Penalty shots, there have been, I think that was the 21st penalty shot so far this season.
Wow.
Yeah. And UC Saros, coincidentally, has faced 3 of those penalty shots.
Well, that's wild. So he's allowed 2 goals, right?
3. I'm just saying.
He's allowed 3 times?
All 3. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He's been scored on 3 times. There's one other, just a little bit of trivia, one other goaltender's faced 3, and that was Jake Allen from Montreal's had 3 too. So it seems like penalty shots are a little more common this season. They're being handed out maybe a little bit more like candy this season than usual.
Good. That's good stuff. I had no idea. I don't know. I feel like maybe in the past there's been times where they could have awarded penalty shots that they haven't, and maybe they just revisited it and were like, let's start giving these out more.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So I think that. So when that happens, I mean, that was it's 2-1, but the way this season has gone, the Predators have been a kind of inverse of how they've been recently. They've kind of won despite their goaltender. But last night was different. I think last night they won because UC Saros just decided to win it, and he had 12 saves in the third period, and they couldn't get any more offense really going because Buffalo was coming, and it was a pretty mad scramble at the very end there. But they eke out a 2-1 win over Buffalo, a decent team, not a great team, not anything like the Rangers, but a decent team, and a good win on the road.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think they're a hungry team. I think Buffalo's kind of in a very similar situation to Nashville where they're thinking, okay, we want to take some steps forward here. We want to prove some things. I believe they were coming off of a tough loss. That was a good goaltending game, I think, for both goaltenders. You talk about, Nashville really couldn't get more than that 1-goal lead. Ryan O'Reilly, he had, I think, 5 shots in that game, and at least 4 of them had to have been high danger chances. Mm-hmm. And Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen just was having none of it. So it was good to see the Nashville Predators win a game by 1 goal where they had to kind of keep that lead for a whole period. I think, it just shows you, okay, they know how to keep a lead, where I think earlier in the season we knew that they kind of figured out how to lose a lead, but they knew how to keep a lead in this game. So I think it was a good confidence game. Maybe not high scoring, but a good game for them on the road.
Definitely. By the way, if you want to text the show, 615-737-1025, you can send us a question or a comment about the Predators, how their season has gone so far. Of course, they've had their moments. I mean, this has been an interesting year so far. Only 24 games in, they're 12-12. So they're literally a 500 team. And there's a lot of things going on with this team that we're going to talk about over the course of this show, and things to bring up about maybe where they're headed. What does this start kind of mean for them? And so we're going to talk about that. But if you want to text the show, 615-737-1025, and we'll talk about that on the air. Back to the Buffalo game real quick. There was one call up that we haven't mentioned yet, but so the Predators have been dealing with this weird injury situation. We don't really know exactly what's going on. I'm guessing it's something with Liam Foudy because they've been playing 11 forwards and 7 defensemen. But then, of course, they lose Alex Carrier, which we'll talk about, and then this thing with Tyson Barrie, which we'll talk about. But they decided to call up Mark Jankowski. And a few weeks ago, we mentioned the Barrie Trotz I think he kind of tipped his hand in terms of when he goes to Milwaukee this year, he indicated he's going to go with one of the veteran players as opposed to calling up a Afanasiev or a Joakim Kimmel. We were pretty sure he was going to go with a Jankowski or maybe a Gurianov.
Right.
And Jankowski gets the call up and plays last night.
Yeah, not super surprised by that, as much as I think everybody's hungry to see a little bit more of the door open on this youth movement that they've talked about. Not at all surprised that Barry Trotz said, hey, we're going to bring up a guy. He's got, NHL experience. Jankowski has definitely seen some things in the NHL, had some time up here with the team, looked really good, especially last year at the end with Milwaukee kind of through the playoffs and stuff. So not super surprised by that. I know people are kind of hungry to see Afanasiev or Kimmel, but I agree with you. I think I think it's going to be a little bit. I think they're going to let those guys simmer some.
Yep. Yeah, he doesn't want them to overcook. He doesn't want them to undercook either. So I think those guys are going to be well. Afanasiev has had a good season down there. I mean, let's give him credit, but I mean, the guy still has a long way to go. I mean, he's scoring goals that are not NHL goals right now. He needs to get some real skill. Now, Joakim Kimmel, maybe a little bit of a different story. He's very good.
He is very good.
I wouldn't be shocked if we saw a debut from him later this year, but just saying. When we come back, we are going to talk about this Tyson Barrie situation because the timing of this is so strange. And I want to read some quotes from Elliot Friedman about what this means and maybe potentially what could be going on and what we might see because it's thrown a kind of strange wrench into the plans, I think, and especially given the injury to Alex Carrier. So we'll talk about that when we come back. But Nashville, if you're looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, look no further than Salas Realty Group. Salas is not just about property, it's about people. They build long-lasting relationships that are about you, your needs, and your dreams. Salas Realty Group stands for trust, transparency, and community, and they are committed to making a positive impact in Middle Tennessee, one home at a time. Ready to make a move? Visit salasrealtygroup.com today, and experience real estate the Salas way. And we're back at Penalty Box Radio Live, presented by Salas Realty Group and the Nashville Spartans. We are here talking about the Nashville Predators. Joining me today is Ann Kimmel of the Hockey News. Sean Smith has the night off. I'm not even sure where he's doing, actually. I got no clue.
He's out.
He's probably doing more hockey stuff with his kid, I would imagine. He does a lot of that.
He does a lot of hockeying.
Speaking a lot of hockeying, Tyson Barrie has done a lot of hockeying in his career. And we learned over the weekend a few days ago. By the way, I meant to say this. We did have a texter that texted in that wanted to know about Liam Foodie's speed. I know who this texter is. I'm gonna not name who they are, but yeah, Liam Foodie. He's got some speed. That's about it that he's got.
He's fast.
That's about it.
He's fast.
Apparently he's got an injury too, so I don't know. I don't know what that's about. So Tyson Barrie, we learned over the weekend from Elliot Friedman, and I'm just going to read this. He said, "There's word today the Nashville Predators have given Tyson Barrie permission to talk to other teams. Barrie is expected to be a scratch versus the Rangers," which he was. "He's also a UFA at the end of the season. This allows team and player to see if there's a better fit elsewhere." The only way I read that is that it's a trade request from Tyson Barrie. That's the only thing it has to be. I mean, if the team was just wanting to trade him, they would just eventually trade him. They wouldn't really leak that. They would just trade him. And so Tyson Barrie has clearly talked to the team and said, "Look, I know that I'm not part of the future plans. UFA at the end of the year. Doesn't seem to be any talk about a contract, which wouldn't make sense anyways." And so what did you think of when you saw this? And there's one other update I'll read after you talk, but were you surprised to see this news about Tyson Barrie at this point?
I don't know that I was necessarily surprised. The thing that surprised me the most was the timing, because this all kind of broke right after Alexander Carrier was injured. And we had talked to and asked head coach Andrew Brunette about the Tyson Barrie being a healthy scratch. And his comment was, it's a reset, kind of similar to what Luke Evangelista went through, kind of similar to what Yakov Trenin went through. They each kind of sat for a game. They were a little bit off of their game, just a mental break from it. And I took that, when we got that from Andrew Brunette, I took that to mean, hey, he's going to sit a game. But when he sat a second game in Buffalo, this is where it makes me think, there's got to be something happening. Yeah. There's going to be some movement relatively quick if they're going to continue to healthy scratch him.
Yeah. So, and you just brought up him healthy scratching guys like Evangelista and Trenin and Tomasino. The difference is those guys are in their early 20s. I guess Yak is 26, 27. Tyson Barrie's 32, so he's like for him to be treating Tyson Barrie like that into saying like he needs a reset, it indicates a lot more, right?
Right.
It definitely sends a different message for a 32-year-old defenseman. Here's what I think is going on. I think initially Tyson Barrie probably knew going into the season he's not going to be in Nashville come the final day of the year. He's probably going to be traded by the end of Nashville, or by the end of the season from Nashville somewhere. Now. So one thing that's going on here, I think, is this: if he knows he's going to be traded, he probably is. That's got to be a rough situation to be playing these kind of games for this kind of team all season long, knowing where am I going to go?
Right.
What's going to happen in February? Am I going to be in Detroit? Am I going to be back at Edmonton, Toronto, L.A.? Where am I going to go?
Right.
So not knowing that has got to be tough for him and his family. But then also, I think the Alex Carrier injury. So, if you remember, they called up Mark Delgado, got him some games. They immediately call up Stastny.
Right.
To me, that probably triggered something in Tyson Barrie that said, "Look, if this guy, one of our top defensemen, gets injured, and I'm not immediately promoted as a top 4 guy, it's time to move on."
Yeah, this is not a place that sees me in a position where I see myself playing.
Even right now.
Correct.
Let alone in the future, but even these
this
games
season.
In December of this year, I'm not even the guy to take that spot. It's going to be this 23-year-old from Milwaukee who admittedly is better than him right now. I mean, I think
Stastny's fantastic.
I think Mr. Stastny is part of the future of this defense, which we can talk about, but that's what I think is going on. I mean, and I don't blame Tyson at all for this because I think he didn't choose to get traded here. It was a tough situation for him last year, stepping in and being like the only veteran guy in that room late in the season. He handled it phenomenally, and then he comes in this year and knows I'm probably not going to be here again. Maybe I could get traded earlier rather than later. And now, after this major injury to a player I should be replacing, they just go and get the guy from Milwaukee. How about we just go ahead and trade me?
Yeah, let's just call it.
Yeah.
Let's part ways. And I'm with you. I kind of can't blame him.
Yeah.
If you know that that's coming and you kind of see the writing on the wall, there's no point in dragging it out. If this is where the two parties are headed, there's no point in just having an honest conversation and saying, hey, maybe we need to change the timeline of this. Mm-hmm. I can't fault him for that.
If you have any thoughts on this, the defense situation, Tyson Barrie, anything, you can text the show 615-737-1025. We will talk about anything you want to talk about relating to the Preds on the air. I do want to give this little update. Nick Keyser, producer of the morning show here, and intrepid Predators reporter Nick Keyser, said that he brought this out from the 32 Thoughts podcast from Elliot Friedman. This was a quote from there. There have been rumblings that they, meaning the Predators, want to change their blue line a bit. Barrie, Carrier, and Fabro, all of those players might have questions about their future. Maybe one or two of them goes, maybe two of them stay, but I don't think they're all safe. So that kind of quote to me is like, okay, well, you already said that Barrie's like probably going to get traded, so you haven't really said much else there.
Right.
I mean, we know Barrie's going to get traded, which means that Carrier and Fabro could stay. But what did you say before the show? You can't say Fabro.
You can't say trade without saying Fabro.
Yeah.
It's like peanut butter and jelly. Those two words for seasons have gone together.
You have to include the name
must.
Dante Fabro whenever you talk trades.
Must.
Yeah. Every team. It's like
Every team. Doesn't matter what you're looking for. If you're looking for a 1C, please talk to us about Dante Fabro.
Yeah. And poor Dante Fabro, because I think he's played well this year,
Yes.
and he just is always included in that. I think part of it is like because he was so highly touted as a defenseman, and he's not like running away with it right now. People are like, do we keep him? Do we take his value? Whatever. But the other thing is like all these guys have contracts that end this year, and they're all like the same value. I mean, except for Barrie's is a little higher, but to Alex Carrier, 27 years old, $2.5 million. Dante Fabro, 25 years old, $2.5 million. And he's an RFA, so he's a little bit more valuable as an RFA. But I mean, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Fabro or Carrier were traded. Now, Carrier getting injured totally messes up everything. They can't necessarily trade him right now. But I think we know Barrie's going to get traded. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's before, Christmas. I mean,
I think it's one of those things where just you kind of find yourself checking your phone every couple of hours because you think at any minute now there could be word that something has happened. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So one of those guys is getting traded. I think Tyson Barrie is probably the big one. The other thing that this creates to me, and the reason why the timing is so weird, is this defense. The quote from Friedman saying that they want to change things up on the blue line. I'm not surprised by that because the blue line has had weird issues. I mean, in the past, you could rely on a couple things to be kind of steady, but it has just felt like fruit basket turnover. I mean, there's so many different. Yossi was with Fabro for a while. Now he's back with McDonough that he's healthy. Stastny's coming up and coming down. You had Delgaizo thrown in there. You got Jeremy Lauzon seems to be the most stable figure, but he's just a bottom pair guy. And then Luke Schenn comes back, and Luke Schenn has struggled. I think that's safe to say.
I think Luke Schenn is not up to speed yet.
Yeah, Ann's very nice. Ann does not want to. Ann is a good person. Some of us are not good people. I just think Luke Schenn is not what they need right now, and I think he has serious issues with his decision making, which is the part that surprises me. I was not surprised that his speed was not up to par. I mean, his speed has been an issue for a while. But, man, every game there are things that he does that are just like, you can't do that. You cannot. You have a chance to clear the puck. You cannot just send it to the point and get it intercepted and create a chance the other way. If you have a guy that's in the middle of the ice, you've got to find a way to prevent him from getting the puck. You've got to get sticks on passes. You've got to prevent these things from happening because that's what you were brought here to do, is to play solid defense, and he's doing kind of the opposite.
Yeah, it's been tough. He's definitely had some tough shifts to watch. I do not disagree with that. And I think it's interesting because it seems like they were so intentional about kind of easing him into it. So it's not necessarily like Schenn has been thrown into the deep end of the pool by the Predators, when they went with 7 defensemen. He was taking some shifts and getting kind of used to it. So it's been a little bit surprising, but I agree with you. I think we haven't seen any defensive pairings that have really stuck from the get-go.
Yeah.
And I think they need to find those.
I think Yossi and McDonough is going to stick, but I mean, let's take a look at the pairings because I mean, right now, Lauzon is with Fabro. That's what the last couple games Lauzon has been with Fabro, and Stastny, that he's back up, is with Luke Schenn.
Right.
I actually don't mind that. I think Stastny being with Luke Schenn's fine, but Yossi with McDonough, I mean, I still think that's an odd pairing just because you have Yossi playing on his offside, and that's just kind of a struggle. But I don't know. It's not like they are terrible defensively, but they just don't have a lot of stability.
I would agree with that. And I think you have to build in some time together when you're working with these defensive pairings. And part of that has been injury. They haven't had the luxury. Schenn went out after one game, and Carrier has been out, and you brought Stastny up. You had Del Gaizo, who I thought was fantastic when he was up here.
Yeah.
Definitely take some time and do a little bit more work in the AHL. But this is a guy I can see being a part of the Nashville Predators blue line at some point. But it doesn't feel like what's happening with them.
Yeah, I would totally agree. When we come back, we're going to talk about a guy that doesn't get talked about a lot, I don't think, but has had a good season, Michael McCarron. We're going to talk about him and maybe a little bit of a more, these are people kind of topic, but we'll cover that when we come back. But we've been talking about defense. Hey, Shea Weber, Roman Yossi, Matthias Ekholm, PK Subban, a lot of good defensemen in the Predators' history, right? Well, if you're looking for a defender, every great defender needs a great partner, as we have been talking about with defensive partners. And whether you're looking to buy or sell a house in the greater Nashville area, you'll find a great partner in Salas Realty Group. Their comprehensive listings offer detailed property descriptions, images, and virtual tours for an immersive experience of Nashville homes for sale. At Salas Realty Group, building relationships is the priority. With unparalleled customer satisfaction, make Salas your trusted partner in Nashville, Tennessee real estate. Hey Nashville, join the Nashville Spartans, the hockey sensation of the city. Experience thrilling games, family-friendly fun, and unity. Visit NashvilleSpartansHockey.com/tickets, select your game, and use the promo code PBR50 for an exclusive 50% discount when checking out. Don't miss the excitement. Be a part of Nashville Spartans hockey today. Welcome back to Penalty Box Radio Live, brought to you by the Nashville Spartans and Salas Realty Group. So I want to talk about Michael McCarron for a second. I had a chance to talk to him a couple weeks ago about a number of things. I was actually asking about face-offs because I noticed that a lot of guys have been kicked out of face-offs. You've noticed that, right?
I have noticed that.
It's
Yeah,
been very
it's
annoying.
the new slash.
They were very annoyed by all the face-offs. They were definitely ready to talk about it. And he was great in talking about that. But he also brought up something that I think maybe some people have forgotten, and it has not been a topic that has been touched on specifically with him. And I'm talking about last year, him entering in the NHL Player Assistance Program. I didn't really ask about that. I was actually asking about his time with the Milwaukee Admirals last year because he was a part of that run where they went to the Western Conference Final for the Admirals. You'll hear in this clip that we're going to play here in a second that he talks about that, but he does mention at the beginning some things, and I just wanted to touch on this because I think it's important for people to know and for people to get some perspective on what these players go through. So here was Michael McCarron talking to me a couple weeks ago.
I mean, obviously, I had some struggles last year personally, and I was super happy to come back and be able to play hockey. I didn't think I was, not necessarily don't think, but,
Yeah.
You don't see hockey as your number one thing coming back, and luckily I was able to, get healthy and find my way back into the game, and I was just happy to be playing at that time in my life, so it was huge. I mean, we had a really good team down there. We had a good run. Definitely helped a lot of us young guys. I'm not young, but a lot of the guys, coming up this year again, like Tomasino and Vange, Doug Geiso, Stastny, and they brought some good, the longer you go in any league, it's hard, man. Like, you grow as a player, you grow as a person, you see how much you really got to dig in. And it's not easy. Like, I was, 28 years old, and it's 9th year pro, and it's still hard, man.
Yeah.
Like, for those young guys, it's even it's great experience for them and for me.
So that was old man, 28-year-old Michael McCarron talking about his experience last year with the Milwaukee Admirals, but also touching on the struggles, the challenges that he had last year. To date, there has not been any information about what he went through, what he was going through at the time, and that's totally fine. He's not, that's something that's his story to tell. He can tell that whenever he wants, and by the way, I was not trying to get that information out of him. I was just asking about his year last year. But some of the things that he said I thought were worth mentioning, and one is when he entered that program and then when he came out, I think, him saying he didn't know if he was going to play hockey again. He didn't even know that he was going to be doing hockey at all, and so he was just glad to be back. I didn't know that. That was a revelation to me because you don't know what these situations are when players go into this program, and I think there can be any number of things. It can be anything that's big or anything that's small. As long as if they need it, they get it. And he didn't even know if he was going to play hockey again. And this player assistance program has been such a big part of the league for a number of years now. And I know you talked to Mark Borowiecki about it this past summer, right?
I did. Yeah, I got a chance to talk to Mark Borowiecki I was actually doing an article on enforcers, and it was fascinating to talk to him. But we also touched on mental health, which is something that Mark Borowiecki is very vocal about. Mm-hmm. He's working with the Predators now, and he talked about just how challenging this job is. It's such a results-based job. Yeah. It's the hardest league in the world to get a spot in, and you get a spot in the NHL, and that does not mean at all that you're going to keep that spot in the NHL. And one of the things that Boro said that I thought was really interesting and that kind of stuck with me is he talked about how important the organization is. Yes, you have the NHL Players Assistance Program and all that involves and all that entails, but it also matters what the organization's perspective is on mental health and athletes. And one of the things that he said to me is that Nashville is one of the teams that's really on the forefront of addressing, understanding, and embracing mental health with their players. And I thought, that really speaks well of David Poyle, Barry Trotz, this organization from top down, because this is something that they take really very seriously. So I thought that was really interesting, kind of a revelation about the Nashville Predators. But Boro really feels like they are cutting edge when it comes to understanding the experience of these players and what they need.
Yeah. And just on that note, I happen to also have a story of the summer about Pike Williams,
Love him.
the team chaplain. Kind of a different side of it, but very similar in terms of like their mental state. I know team chaplain, people hear that and think, it's just about religion or faith or whatever, and that is part of it, but it really is about other things. It's about who they are as people, the results-based stuff that you're talking about, and how important that is. And the Predators have been, again, at the forefront of having that. You mentioned in the break there was some sort of viral clip about a guy.
Yes.
Who was it?
It was Scott Darling.
That's right.
Darling.
Scott Darling talked
Yes.
about the player assistance program and was like very disparaging of it.
Yes, he was on the What Chaos podcast.
Yeah.
And something came out about the Players Assistance Program, and he said, if you ever need help, do it on your own. Don't go through them.
Yeah.
Because they are blank monsters, as Cody Glass would say.
That was really strange. I'd never seen a player with that reaction about that program. We are sure that that's what he was talking about, right? The Players Assistance Program?
Players Assistance Program, yeah. And kind of, I believe his take was he felt like if you enter in there, then the NHL goes in and says, hey, we're going to try to find a way to cut your contract. And so
Right.
I think that was sort of the frustration that he had, is that it feels like maybe there is
like if they find out something, like maybe because there's contracts, clauses in contracts about, making the I don't know what the phrase is, but basically if you do something that's really detrimental to the team or something,
Right.
you do something illegal.
Conduct or, yes.
Yeah, right. So maybe that's what he's talking about and worried about that.
Yeah, what seemed to be just, in what I heard when I was listening to him saying, hey, they can then circle back around and use this against you. And I thought, I think.
But I know how therapy works. I mean, I'm proud to say this. I go to a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
Like therapy is like you have a therapist. Like there's confidentiality there, and
Right.
Unless you do something that's like to hurt someone else or to hurt yourself, like they're not just gonna. Even if it's illegal, even if it's like drugs related or something that would be a bad look for the team, like they can't tell anybody. So we're speculating a lot here. It's not always about therapy and these kind of things, but that's odd to me that's how he reacted. That's how he reacted, because it makes me think is Scott Darling's experience was not a good one. It sounds like
Does not sound like he had a good experience with it.
no, and that's too bad. I mean, because I
hate
believe
that.
I believe therapy is great for everyone. And then we've seen so many great experiences with Connor Ingram and with
Yes.
Austin Watson and with Michael McCarron of guys going into the program and coming out great on the other end. And now, I mean, this is irrelevant, but Michael McCarron's having a great year now. I mean, he's a big
Yes.
part of that bottom line with Philip Tomasino, and I mean, he's been a better guy for it, I think.
Yes, I think so too. I think so much of it too, especially, he kind of jokes about being an older guy, which
Yeah.
I'll have to sit him down. But, he kind of jokes about being an older guy. But I think, it takes a long time to kind of get everything in perspective. And you look at these hockey players, this stuff started for them when they were young.
Yeah.
This has been their life for so long. So I think you have to get a little bit older to get perspective. And I think once you do, it does sort of settle some things on the ice. And I agree with you. I have thoroughly enjoyed watching Michael McCarron. I know there were some times where he was a healthy scratch and Phil Tomasino was a healthy scratch. But I think you put those guys together on that fourth line, and when they hit the ice, they're going to do something.
Yeah. It is not a pairing I ever thought would work. Michael McCarron with Philip Tomasino. I would have always thought McCarron needs to be with a guy like Cole Smith or Jakob Trenin, physical, bruiser kind of player. And then Tomasino needs to be with a skill guy like a Forsberg or like a Cody Glass or Tommy Novak. But man, it's a pairing that works. I mean, because it makes sense. I think McCarron is the guy that can dig pucks out of the corner, that can go behind the net, that can body up guys, and Tomasino can retrieve pucks and use his skill some. And it's been a great pairing. That they haven't like lit it up or anything, but McCarron had that 2-goal night the other night, and Tomasino has looked fantastic in the last couple weeks. So McCarron's been a big part of that.
Yeah, it's been really great to watch. And I agree with you. It's maybe not the pairing that you would on paper say is going to work, but you put them out on the ice together and they complement each other very well.
Yeah. We do have a couple of texts. We are going to get to those. Joe in Antioch, I'm going to get to your text when we come back, of course. That's a great question that you had. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to have preview the next couple weeks. Well, no, just the next week, really. Preview the next week of the Nashville Predators. And then we're going to conclude with the 3-on-3 draft. That's going to be coming up here in a little bit. I know Ann is very excited. But look, buying a home, it can be a really stressful experience. Huge decision, so many things to consider. But with experienced real estate professionals at Salas Realty Group, you can find your dream home in the most vibrant and dynamic city in the world, right here in Nashville, Tennessee. If you're a first-time home buyer, investor, or selling your property, Salas Realty team guides you every step of the way. They have intimate knowledge of Nashville's neighborhoods, schools, and market trends, and they will match you to the perfect home to suit your lifestyle and needs. If you want to get started, go to salasrealtygroup.com and experience real estate the Salas way. And welcome back to Penalty Box Radio Live. We are here talking about the Nashville Predators. Sean Smith is out in his place. Ann Kimmel with the Hockey News. I don't know, maybe Sean Smith's going to lose his job because I think Ann's done a fantastic job tonight.
Look out, Sean. Coming for you.
So before we went to the break, I teased that we were going to get to Joe in Antioch's question. Here was his comment. This is interesting and definitely relevant, especially considering last night's game. So far this season, UC Saros 9-10. He's allowed 53 goals, 3-point goals average. You get some stats here. Kevin Lankinen isn't much better with a 3.04 goals against average. How do you feel about the current state of the goaltending? Is it all on them or is it on the defensive players too? My initial reaction, Joe, is I know this is hard to hear, but I think it's still early. I actually think Lankinen has been better than Saros to begin with, but I'm telling you what, UC Saros' performance last night in Buffalo was very encouraging. If he strings together another couple of performances like that, especially against Chicago tomorrow night, I think that you're going to be back to thinking, okay, the goaltending is solid now. Now we can rely on that a little bit more. What do you think?
I would agree with that. Another thing that I kind of want to throw out there, we talked a little bit earlier about defensive pairings. This is an all-new system. So while in theory, UC Saros and Kevin Lankinen's job is the same, hey, don't let a puck in the net, in reality, the system that's being played in front of him is very different. So I think you have to allow for the fact that there's an adjustment for these guys as well. Again, Saros, slow starter. But I agree with you. I think if you see a couple more games like this, everybody's going to exhale about Saros. I don't know that anybody is very concerned. I don't think anybody in the Predators organization is extremely concerned about UC Saros at all.
They don't seem to be.
They don't seem to be. And I think, when you've got Kevin Lankinen, I think Kevin Lankinen is as good a backup as you're going to find right now in the league. I know he's had a couple of rough games as well. But again, I think it's just adjustments. I think this team is adjusting.
Were you there for the stick break moment in practice? Were you there for that?
I heard about the stick break moment.
That was weird. So if you guys didn't see this, we didn't get video of it. It was just a practice, but they're doing a full. This is after the Wild game. Is this last Friday? I think. They're doing like a full ice, like 9-on-9. It was kind of wild, actually. It looked like chaos to me. But Lankinen, he let in a goal, and I think he let in another one right after that or something. Dude just destroyed his stick on the goal, and you just don't see that kind of thing in practice.
Or from a Finn.
Yeah, the Finnish people they don't break a lot of sticks, but I've never even seen him do that in a game. I mean, maybe he did it one of those that terrible year in Chicago. He probably broke a lot of sticks that year, actually, now that I think about it. But I'd never seen that from him, and it was in practice, and it was kind of like a moment where everyone was kind of like, is he really mad? What's going on here? Right. And, Vanderklot came out, just give him a new stick, and then he just kept going, and that was it. And it was odd, but he started the next night against the Rangers and played pretty well in that game, I think.
Yeah, I thought he was great against the Rangers. I mean, the Rangers are such a high-quality offensive power. I thought Lankinen really did a great job kind of tracking the things that they cook up. So I thought he did well.
And, so Joe and Antioch, I think that the current state of the goaltending is maybe wait-and-see approach. I think it's okay. I think there's nothing wrong with the goaltending for the most part. You need Saros to you need that Buffalo game to be the track for the rest of the year. I mean, he doesn't have to be like incredible every night, but you need that to be like that's the kind of the goal for him to be every night. You just need him to be like, even on his bad nights, to put you in position to win the game. They can't have bad goaltending if they're going to be any semblance of a good team this year. So that's kind of what I think. The next few weeks or the next week or so is there's some winnable games. There's some not winnable games. There's Tuesday at Chicago. They play that tomorrow. Another chance against the Blackhawks, but on the road this time. Then Thursday they host Tampa, who they've lost to the first time, but they get them here at Bridgestone. And then they go on the road at Toronto, at Montreal, back to back. So that's going to be tough. I mean, I would imagine that Saros gets the Toronto game, Lankinen gets the Montreal game. That's just a guess, but it's a tough week. Some road games coming back up, even though they've had this long stretch at home. So tough week, kind of.
Yeah,
it's a tough week.
Yeah, I would say it's a tough week. I think, you're looking at Tampa Bay and Toronto. Those are two pretty tough teams. Although, look, the Predators beat Toronto in overtime. And I think even in their first game, their opening game of the season was against Tampa Bay. And, I think the Predators played pretty well in that first game of the season, too. Tampa Bay's, they're having a little bit of a rough stretch, too. I think they've had their fourth loss in a row. So it'll be interesting to see. I think those would be really impressive games if the Predators came away with some wins. Let's see what they can do against, Chicago and Montreal, too. At this point, you really can't overlook anybody, as they kind of go through these growing pains. So
all three of those games, all three of those teams, Toronto, Tampa, Montreal, out of the top three in the Atlantic Division. So it's that Atlantic Division. Detroit's in their third. That's kind of odd. So I guess they're gonna be tough this year. So the next couple weeks for the Predators are going to be a little challenging. Some road games coming up as we enter the holiday season. And speaking of holidays, we have a special holiday-themed edition of the 3-on-3 draft, and we're going to go ahead and kick it off as producer Jake brings us the holiday music, as I knew he would. So if you don't know what we're doing, every Every week on the show, we draft something, and today, our draft, we are drafting holiday headaches. The biggest headaches of the holidays. Things that drive you crazy. You got to pick 3 holiday headaches, and because Ann is a guest host, we are going to give her the first pick of the 3-on-3 draft. And what is your first pick in the Holiday Headaches 3-on-3 draft?
Okay, first of all, I want to say, just let me lay out that I understand that some of these are very demographic specific. What may be delightful for a child is a holiday headache for a parent. So just let me say that. But my first pick in the Holiday Headache draft, I'm going with Elf on a Shelf.
Okay.
Elf
all right.
on a Shelf.
Okay.
These magical elves that manage his nice list by watching your family all day, and then they travel to the North Pole, and then they return the next morning somewhere different in your house.
So I've never done the Elf on a Shelf. I don't even really get it. I and I have a kid too, so I really don't even understand it. I mean, that's it, right? It's just moves or something?
You move the elf. The elf moves. Let me rephrase that.
Okay.
The elf moves,
Yeah, right.
but the elf gets into some trouble every time the elf moves. And here is what I find particularly disturbing about this. There's a number of things disturbing about this. A, creepy elf flying around your house. It lasted one night with my then 4-year-old was like, I won't live here if he lives here. So we only did it one night. But I've seen it. He gets into different things every night. And this goes on for the month of December. Here's the problem. You have children who cannot remember to unload the dishwasher 5 minutes after you tell them unload the dishwasher.
Okay, right.
But what you end up with are children who can remember that the elf on the shelf did weightlifting with barbells made out of mini marshmallows and toothpicks in 2017. So
Weird.
you can't, the elf can't repeat things.
I see. Okay.
It's too much, y'all.
It's a headache for the parents. Yeah.
It's too much, y'all.
It's too much. Okay.
Too much,
All right.
y'all.
So Elf on a Shelf is your first pick in the Holiday Headaches draft. My number 1 pick is parking at Target.
Oh.
Specifically Target. I'll park at Walmart all day. Walmart has parking lots the size of a desert, man. I mean, Walmart's parking lots are the biggest. They're an engineering marvel, to be honest. Like, I've never seen Walmart parking lots as big as Walmart. But Target parking lots are specifically designed to drive you crazy because they are they're smaller, and they have it feels like the parking spots are smaller. They have a lot more cart return things. The carts are way bigger, so like they're always in the way. Those carts at Target are horrible.
Fair point.
And everyone goes to Target at holidays, and I find myself at Target more often than I want to. Parking at Target in the holidays is absolutely the worst thing in the world. It drives me crazy every time. So parking at Target is my number 1 holiday headaches pick. Go ahead with your number 2 pick.
All right, my number 2 pick, the 3 worst words that you can read over the holiday season, my friends. Batteries not included. My second pick is toy assembly and batteries.
Toy assembly and batteries.
Toy assembly and batteries. When you buy gifts for children, you don't want to give them the box with it not put together. So, 1 year, and we assembled a Matchbox car carport. Mm-hmm. Took hours.
Okay.
Carried it to the table to cover it with a sheet, dropped it, broke it, fell apart. Words were said, my friend.
Okay, yeah, a lot of words.
Feliz Navidad, roughly translated. A lot of words were said.
Okay.
So, and you give kids toys, batteries not included in the very fine print. You got to scramble around your house or wait till the next day. Nobody's happy.
Now, I in my experience, most of the time these things have batteries. Is that not true anymore?
I don't think.
Okay.
Yeah, batteries not included.
Okay.
Worst words.
All right, so your number 2 is batteries not included / toy
assembly.
toy assembly.
Just the prep.
My number 2 is running out of Scotch tape to wrap your presents. Just not having it available. Just you always think. I feel like I've bought Scotch tape every week for the last year, and then it all disappears. It's all in different drawers, and my daughter just takes it and uses it for projects, and it's like it's gone. And then all of a sudden I've got to wrap a present at midnight on Christmas Eve, and it's like nowhere to be found. So running out of Scotch tape is my number 2. What is your number 3 overall pick?
My number 3, biggest headache, white elephant gifts / bad Santa gifts, dirty Santa gifts.
Terrible.
What is this?
Yeah.
What are the
Can we
parameters?
end this?
Can we just not?
We got to end the white elephant thing. I totally agree.
It's not. And then if you call it dirty Santa, does that mean you go shop on Church Street? Or, you know what I'm saying? What are the parameters? You never know. Not everybody wants a little mini charcuterie board. Not everybody drinks. Not everybody wants bananagrams.
That's a big one. Poopery.
Poopery.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Is so
So,
annoying.
yeah, just the white elephant, dirty Santa. I'm not here for it.
My number 3 pick is also presents related. Mine's just buying presents for your parents. I think parents are impossible to buy for. I mean, what in the world is my dad going to do with another coffee cup? I mean, he's got 1,000 of them. What is my dad going to do with another type of, my dad's really into beer making now, so I'm going to buy him another thing of beer. He's already got 14 he's got to make from the past presents. I don't know. It's just like buying presents for your parents is so hard. It's like, I can't give you anything else. You don't need anything. You're retired. You're like going on cruises now. I can't. I'm trying to take my kid. Why don't you just... I'll take you out to dinner or something. So,
there you go.
So our picks are, mine was parking at Target, running out of Scotch tape, buying presents for parents. What are yours?
Mine was Elf on a Shelf, White Elephant / Dirty Santa, and Toy Assembly, no batteries included.
Okay, producer Jake, who wins?
I wanted to give it to Ann because she's the guest, and it was really close down to the wire.
Okay.
But Alex, the presents for parents, I'm struggling over that right now, what I'm going to get my parents. That one sold me. Alex is the winner.
All right, thank you. We appreciate you listening to the show. Penalty Box Radio Live. Thank you, Ann, for joining us today. It's been fantastic. I think you've done a great job.
It was great. Thanks for having me. I loved it.
Sean is gonna have to work to get back in the lineup at this point. I
Bring
think.
you some Scotch tape.
It's gonna be tough. But thank you for listening to the show. As always, Penalty Box Radio is brought to you by Salas Realty Group and the Nashville Spartans, and we will see everybody next week. Back to Wednesdays, starting a week from this Wednesday, of course, and we'll see everyone then.